The streets of Memphis don't forgive. They don't forget. And they certainly don't wait. From the moment Pooh Shiesty stepped onto the scene, it was clear he wasn't just another rapper chasing clout. He was someone forged in the chaos, someone who carried the weight of a family legacy built on survival, respect, and a reputation that could crumble with a single misstep. Every corner of Cane Creek whispered stories of the Shiesty family. Loyalty intertwined with danger, ambition shadowed by violence, and the relentless grind to rise above a world designed to keep you down. But for Pooh Shiesty, the streets were more than a backdrop. They were his classroom, his battlefield, and eventually, the stage that would launch him into global recognition. When he first grabbed a mic, it wasn't just for music. It was a declaration. Every lyric, every verse, every hook carried the raw authenticity of someone who had seen the consequences of disrespect, betrayal, and survival up close. And then came the moment that changed everything. Back in Blood. The track wasn't just a hit, it was a statement, a worldwide broadcast of both triumph and warning. Millions of streams, chart-topping numbers, and attention from the biggest names in the industry. But with that fame came an unavoidable truth. The same streets that made Pooh Shiesty could just as easily take everything away. From deadly beefs to federal arrests, from record deals to violent confrontations, his story is a relentless ride through the highs of instant fame and the lows of life-threatening retaliation. It's a story of family, loyalty, and survival, but it's also a cautionary tale of what happens when the line between the streets and stardom blurs. Memphis watches, the world listens, and every decision has consequences. This isn't just rap, it's reality. And for Pooh Shiesty, the game is far from over. The streets of Memphis have always demanded respect. You don't get it by talking, you earn it with your actions, and for Pooh Shiesty, those lessons were drilled into him from the very beginning. Born in the Cane Creek projects, he didn't grow up in a world where failure was an option. Survival was the only rule, and respect wasn't given, it was demanded. From the youngest age, Pooh Shiesty learned that every glance, every word, every move could mean the difference between life and death. His family wasn't just a household, it was a dynasty of survival, with each member carrying a legacy that intertwined the streets and the underground economy. Mob boss, Pooh Shiesty's father, had already cemented the family name in Memphis lore, creating a blueprint that combined street credibility with business acumen. But for Pooh Shiesty, the streets weren't just about making money, they were about proving himself, carving a place in a world where only the strongest, the smartest, and the boldest thrived. Before he ever saw the bright lights or heard his name on streaming platforms, Pooh Shiesty's life was defined by the small, calculated actions that kept him alive. Every corner of Cane Creek projects was a lesson, every confrontation a test. When he wasn't running with Choa Gang, he was watching, learning, studying the moves of those who had survived longer than him. There were no shortcuts, no cheat codes, just an unspoken code, loyalty above all, and disrespect was a debt that demanded repayment. That code would soon define his rise and fuel the feuds that would make him a household name in hip-hop circles. It was in 2018 that Pooh Shiesty first began to make waves in the Memphis rap scene. His debut verse appeared on Big 30's track, Breaking News, a song that, at first glance, seemed like just another local release. But Pooh Shiesty's presence on the track was magnetic. The raw intensity in his delivery, the authenticity in his lyrics, and the confidence that came from living the life he rapped about set him apart. Even with minimal promotion, the track gained traction on local radio stations and social media, signaling the arrival of a new voice in Memphis. People weren't just listening, they were paying attention. The real breakout, however, came with his debut single, Hell Night, featuring Big Dirty. The music video, shot by SMB Films, showed Pooh Shiesty in the same neighborhoods that had shaped him, streets that had witnessed countless stories of ambition, survival, and violence. The imagery wasn't just for effect, it was real life. Cane Creek projects became the backdrop for his artistry, grounding his music in authenticity that fans could feel. Hell Night racked up over 6 million views, not just because of catchy beats or clever rhymes, but because Pooh Shiesty offered something rare, a true reflection of the streets, a story told by someone who had lived it. But it wasn't just about building a fan base, it was about sending a message. Memphis was a city where respect was everything, and Pooh Shiesty understood that better than most. His rise coincided with growing tensions in the local rap scene, particularly with rival crews like EBG. When Poohist's collaboration with Lil Durk, Back in Blood, dropped, the line about taking from EBG wasn't just lyrical flair, it was a direct challenge. For most listeners, it sounded like typical rap bravado, but for EBG, it was an open humiliation broadcast to millions. Every stream, every play, reinforced their defeat. The streets had eyes, and in Memphis, no insult went unanswered. EBG's response was immediate but fraught with risk. EBG Jizzle, not a seasoned rapper, dropped a remix attempting to downplay the robbery, claiming it wasn't as significant as Back in Blood made it appear. He tried to frame Pooh Shiesty as someone inflating small victories, a street legend in his own mind. But in the streets, perception is reality. Pooh Shiesty and Choa Gang saw the remix as weakness, an opportunity to reinforce their dominance. Social media posts followed, with cryptic messages hinting that retaliation was inevitable. The tension escalated until violence finally intervened. EBG Jizzle was shot 3 times in the arm, a stark reminder that in Memphis, music and street life were inseparable, and disrespect came with a cost. That incident didn't slow Pooh Shiesty, it amplified his reputation. It was proof that he didn't just rap about the streets, he enforced their rules. From that point forward, every move he made, every song he released, carried weight. But the streets of Memphis aren't isolated. They intersect with ambition, fame, and opportunity in ways that can either elevate or destroy you. Pooh Shiesty was learning fast that rising too quickly without controlling your environment could make you a target. His beefs weren't just local drama, they were public spectacles that drew in other crews, amplified by social media and streaming platforms. Every post, every mention, every hint of disrespect could spiral into real-world consequences. Meanwhile, Pooh Shiesty's music career began to accelerate on a scale he hadn't anticipated. Collaborating with Lil Durk wasn't just a feature, it was a validation. Durk, already a major figure in hip-hop, recognized the unique energy Pooh Shiesty brought. Their studio session in Atlanta was almost accidental, yet the chemistry was immediate. Durk laid down his verse in minutes, complementing Pooh Shiesty's aggressive hook with melodic precision. Back in Blood was more than a song, it was a cultural moment, bridging the street credibility of Memphis with the mainstream reach of Chicago drill, giving Pooh Shiesty access to a global audience. The track would eventually hit number 13 on the Billboard Hot 100 and generate hundreds of millions of streams, catapulting Pooh Shiesty from local notoriety to international fame. But fame brought its own perils. Pooh Shiesty hadn't left the streets behind, he carried them with him. The same instincts that had kept him alive in Cane Creek projects now manifested in risky encounters, impulsive decisions, and confrontations that blurred the line between entertainment and criminality. From high-profile beefs to violent altercations, he was constantly reminded that the world of music and the world of the streets were inextricably linked. One misstep could undo everything he had worked for, and the pressure to maintain authenticity while navigating fame was relentless. Pooh Shiesty's rise wasn't just about talent, it was about strategy, loyalty, and timing. Signing with Gucci Mane's 1017 Records in 2020 gave him legitimacy and resources, but it also came with expectations. Gucci Mane understood the delicate balance between street credibility and mainstream appeal, and he recognized Pooh Shiesty's potential to dominate both worlds. The label deal offered marketing support, distribution, and collaborations that would have been impossible for an independent artist. But with access to more money, cars, jewelry, and attention, the stakes were higher than ever. Every move could be scrutinized, every action could be misinterpreted, and every rivalry could escalate beyond control. Pooh Shiesty's story in 2018 and 2019 was a prelude, a build-up to what would become a whirlwind of music, money, and danger. From the debut verse on Breaking News to the breakout single Hell Night, from local respect to national attention, he was steadily proving that he belonged. But the streets weren't finished with him, and the music industry was only just realizing the force they had unleashed. Every song, every lyric, every feature was more than entertainment. It was a message, a warning, and a declaration that Pooh Shiesty was a new kind of Memphis star, one who could dominate both the charts and the streets simultaneously. By the end of 2019, Pooh Shiesty was no longer just a local sensation. He had become a figure whose every move mattered, whose every word could spark debate or danger. The lines between music, violence, and loyalty were blurred, and navigating that reality required more than talent. It required instinct, intelligence, and nerves of steel. Every listener, every rival, and every fan was watching, and in Memphis, watching meant judging, and judging often meant deciding who would survive and who would fall. By the time Pooh Shiesty's name was echoing beyond Memphis, He was already deeply entangled in a web of rivalries and street politics that could have ended a lesser man's career or life. The success of Back in Blood had cemented his status as one of the most dangerous and influential new voices in hip-hop, but it also painted a target on his back. In Memphis, respect wasn't just about reputation, it was about survival, and the slightest misstep could turn admiration into animosity. For Choa Gang, disrespect was never tolerated, and every perceived slight demanded a response. The feud with EBG exemplified this rule. The line in Back in Blood wasn't just bravado, it was a public assertion of dominance, a call to action that only someone with the courage and credibility to back it up could make. And Pooh Shiesty wasn't about to let anyone challenge that narrative. EBG's attempt to downplay the incident with their remix was a miscalculation. While they tried to present the robbery as minor and frame Pooh Shiesty as exaggerating, the streets interpreted it differently. The remix didn't mitigate humiliation, it magnified it. In the online world, where millions of streams translated directly into cultural influence, EBG's embarrassment was broadcast to the world. Every time Back in Blood played, the track celebrated their defeat. That level of public exposure in the streets wasn't just embarrassing, it was dangerous. In Memphis, reputation is currency, and losing face can cost more than respect, it can cost lives. The shooting of EBG Jizzle wasn't just retaliation, it was a stark reminder of the rules governing Memphis street life. The city watched, and a message had been sent. Crossing Choa Gang came with consequences. Pooh Shiesty's reputation for enforcing that code didn't just intimidate EBG, it elevated him within the broader Memphis scene. But it also meant that he had to constantly navigate an environment where allies and enemies were often indistinguishable. Every public appearance, every studio session, every social media post had the potential to ignite conflict. It was a world where the line between business and survival was razor-thin, and Pooh Shiesty had to operate with the precision of someone who understood that any misstep could be fatal. The stakes weren't just about music, they were about life, death, and legacy. As the feud with EBG intensified, Pooh Shiesty also found himself in the crosshairs of other local rivals, most notably Big Boogie. What might have seemed like a small dispute to outsiders was, in Memphis terms, a direct challenge to authority. When Big Boogie claimed during an Instagram Live that he was a better rapper than Pooh Shiesty, it wasn't just competitive talk, it was a threat to the hierarchy. For someone on the rise like Pooh Shiesty, this was intolerable. Respect wasn't optional, it was mandatory, and Pooh Shiesty had built his entire career on enforcing that principle. He couldn't allow a public slight, no matter how casual it seemed, to go unanswered. The confrontation with Big Boogie was inevitable. Pooh Shiesty and his associate Big 30 pulled up on Big Boogie's live session, demanding accountability for the comments. According to Pooh Shiesty, the meeting didn't unfold as expected. Big Boogie allegedly fled when faced with a direct challenge. While Big Boogie denied this version of events, the narrative reinforced Pooh Shiesty's growing reputation as someone who demanded respect and didn't tolerate public disrespect. In Memphis, perception often matters more than reality, and Pooh Shiesty had mastered the art of shaping both. But Pooh Shiesty didn't stop with mere confrontations. He leveraged his music, his brand, and even his entrepreneurial ventures to assert dominance. One of the most striking examples was his Red Rum cannabis brand, explicitly designed to mock Big Boogie and his crew. By branding a product after their name and promoting it publicly, Pooh Shiesty weaponized commerce as a form of disrespect. Every purchase of Red Rum was a symbolic act, a statement of allegiance to Choa Gang and a slap in the face to their rivals. This blend of entrepreneurship and street strategy showcased Pooh Shiesty's understanding that influence in the modern era isn't just built through violence or music. It's built through perception, branding, and cultural control. The escalation reached a tragic climax on July 12, 2020, during a performance in Co, Mississippi. The concert erupted into chaos when gunfire broke out, discharging over 50 rounds from multiple firearms. Although Big Boogie survived, two innocent people, 19-year-old Jasmine Bradshaw and 37-year-old Elvie Wilborn, were killed. The shooting was coordinated, calculated, and deliberate. Every detail suggested that the attack was premeditated, targeting Big Boogie specifically while sending a broader message about the consequences of disrespecting Choa Gang. Jasmine Bradshaw, tragically pregnant and standing on stage during the attack, became an unintended victim of a feud rooted in reputation and survival. The incident underscored the deadly intersection between rap beefs and real-world violence, a dynamic that Pooh Shiesty had navigated throughout his rise. For Pooh Shiesty, music was always intertwined with the streets. Back in Blood and subsequent tracks weren't just entertainment, they were declarations, manifestos, and warnings. Each release, each collaboration, each viral moment strengthened his brand and expanded his influence. The partnership with Lil Durk in particular showcased Pooh Shiesty's ability to merge raw street energy with mainstream appeal, creating music that resonated with audiences both locally and internationally. The track's success demonstrated that Pooh Shiesty could command attention not just through street credibility, but also through artistry and strategic collaboration. The trajectory from local notoriety to national prominence was meteoric, but fame brought additional pressures. With wealth and recognition came visibility, and visibility meant risk. Expensive cars, diamond jewelry, and designer clothing were symbols of success, but they also painted targets on Pooh Shiesty and his associates. Every public appearance was a potential threat, every flashy post a calculated risk. The same instincts that had kept him alive in Cane Creek projects, alertness, decisiveness, aggression, were now necessary for navigating the high-stakes world of fame, where mistakes could result in both legal trouble and personal danger. Pooh Shiesty's life during this period was a delicate balancing act. On one hand, he had record deals, collaborations with top-tier artists, and a growing fan base that translated into significant income. On the other hand, he remained entrenched in the street culture that had shaped him, where every slight could spark a feud and every betrayal could escalate into violence. The juxtaposition of success and survival created an environment of constant tension, a reality where every day was both an opportunity and a test. This duality was perhaps most evident in the way Pooh Shiesty handled conflicts. While he leveraged music, social media, and branding to assert dominance, he also remained ready to enforce respect through physical means when necessary. Whether responding to EBG, confronting Big Boogie, or managing the unpredictable dynamics of the Memphis streets, Pooh Shiesty demonstrated an understanding that influence wasn't just built on words, it was built on action. His reputation for handling disputes decisively became a critical component of his rise, reinforcing his status as someone who could command both respect and fear. Despite the volatility surrounding him, Pooh Shiesty continued to thrive creatively. His early projects showcased a unique blend of authenticity, aggression, and strategic storytelling. Unlike many artists who romanticize street life from a distance, Pooh Shiesty was living it, and that authenticity resonated with listeners. Fans weren't just buying music, they were buying into the lived reality of someone who had survived, fought, and emerged from the streets of Memphis. His lyrics, visuals, and persona reflected a life of calculated risk, strategic alliances, and relentless ambition. But the higher Pooh Shiesty climbed, the sharper the stakes became. Every feud, every public interaction, every viral moment contributed to an environment where one miscalculation could have catastrophic consequences. The streets, which had once been his training ground, now demanded more from him than ever before. Fame and fortune magnified both his influence and his vulnerability. The feuds that had propelled him into the spotlight were also warnings. The same intensity that created opportunities could just as easily create danger. As 2020 progressed, Pooh Shiesty's life became a continuous balancing act between opportunity and risk. The success of Back in Blood had opened doors to national prominence, while his ongoing feuds underscored the reality that his reputation and his life were constantly under threat. Every public move, every lyrical jab, and every social media post carried weight, reinforcing the complex interplay between street credibility and mainstream success. For Pooh Shiesty, navigating that intersection was both an art and a survival skill, one that would define his rise and foreshadow the challenges to come. The rise of Pooh Shiesty wasn't just about music, it was a story of strategy, instinct, and timing. Every move he made reflected an understanding of both the streets and the business of hip-hop, a duality few artists could navigate so effectively. Even as the feuds with EBG and Big Boogie simmered, he was steadily building a career that blended authenticity with mainstream appeal. Shiesty Season, his debut mixtape, was proof that Memphis could produce not just street legends, but chart-topping artists capable of commanding national attention. The tracks resonated because they told a story listeners could feel, raw, unfiltered, and undeniably real. The success of Shiesty Season wasn't just measured in streams or chart positions, it was measured in influence. Pooh Shiesty's ability to control the narrative around his brand allowed him to expand his reach beyond music. Social media became his arena, where every post, every video, and every interaction contributed to his public persona. While some artists relied solely on music videos or interviews to shape perception, Pooh Shiesty understood the power of constant engagement. Fans weren't just consuming his music, they were consuming his life, and he gave them exactly what they wanted: drama, authenticity, and stakes that felt real. At the same time, Pooh Shiesty had to contend with the reality that fame attracts predators, both in the streets and the legal system. Memphis had taught him how to survive on the corners, but navigating the complexities of national success required a different kind of awareness. Associates who had been loyal in the projects could become liabilities in high-stakes business transactions, and rival artists were constantly looking for openings to undermine his credibility. He learned quickly that every handshake, every contract, and every deal had to be scrutinized, because in the world he now occupied, mistakes could be fatal. Despite his rapid ascent, Pooh Shiesty never lost the mentality that had fueled his survival in Cane Creek projects. The streets taught him to anticipate threats, read intentions, and act decisively. This mindset extended to his music. His lyrics weren't just entertainment, they were preemptive maneuvers, establishing his dominance and warning competitors that any disrespect would carry consequences. Tracks like Step on Shit and Twerksome weren't random flexes. They were calculated statements that reinforced his reputation as both an artist and a street authority. But with growth came complexity. The relationships that had once been straightforward, loyal friends, family allies, and gang affiliations, now intersected with legal, business, and media landscapes that required careful navigation. Associates who once operated in the shadows were now potential liabilities in courtrooms or headlines. Every interaction carried weight, and every decision had to account for both opportunity and risk. Pooh Shiesty's ability to manage this growing web of influence became a critical component of his success, but it also laid the groundwork for the legal battles that would soon define his life. The tension between street credibility and mainstream visibility was perhaps most evident in the incidents that led to his federal charges. The Bay Harbor Islands shooting in October 2021 wasn't just a reckless act. It was a moment that crystallized the collision of his two worlds. What should have been a routine transaction became a chaotic, violent encounter that left two victims wounded and exposed Pooh Shiesty to federal scrutiny. Surveillance footage, eyewitness accounts, and social media evidence created a paper trail that law enforcement couldn't ignore. It was a stark reminder that actions taken in the streets could follow an artist into the national spotlight, with consequences far beyond local beefs or music industry politics. The King of Diamonds nightclub incident further complicated matters. When $40,000 allegedly fell from Pooh Shiesty's waistline, his reaction escalated a minor dispute into a felony assault case. The shooting of a security guard in front of dozens of witnesses was captured on cell phones, leaving little room for legal ambiguity. While his street instincts demanded a forceful response, the legal system interpreted it through an entirely different lens. Suddenly, the environment he had once mastered, a world where respect and rapid decision-making ensured survival, had turned against him. The stakes were no longer reputation or street authority. They were freedom and the very trajectory of his career. Even amidst these incidents, Pooh Shiesty continued to release music. Tracks dropped from Shiesty Season Certified, and collaborations with Gucci Mane, Lil Durk, and Jack Harlow reinforced his dominance in the hip-hop scene. Fans didn't just listen, they followed every detail of his life, absorbing his story as it unfolded in real time. This ability to maintain relevance, even as he navigated legal peril, demonstrated a level of strategic foresight few artists possess. While some might have paused or retreated in the face of such chaos, Pooh Shiesty leveraged every moment to reinforce his brand, turning challenges into opportunities for visibility and influence. However, the legal battles loomed like an unavoidable shadow. Federal charges brought their own set of complications: longer sentences, stricter supervision, and conditions that directly conflicted with his existing lifestyle and relationships. The plea deal, ultimately resulting in a 63-month sentence, represented both a punishment and a temporary pause on his public momentum. For a young artist in his prime, 5 years behind bars was a significant interruption, one that threatened not just his music career but the cultural relevance he had fought so hard to achieve. During this period, Pooh Shiesty's adaptability was tested in ways that had nothing to do with musical talent. Federal prison is a world of rigid structure, constant surveillance, and forced conformity. It is designed to strip away individuality, to challenge inmates' sense of identity, and to recondition behavior. For someone like Pooh Shiesty, who had navigated danger his entire life, the adjustment was as much psychological as it was physical. Every decision had to account for survival within an environment where fame, money, and influence carried no inherent protection. Respect had to be earned anew, every day, through observation, strategy, and action. At the same time, prison offered unexpected opportunities for growth. Removed from the distractions of street conflicts and the constant pressure of the industry, Pooh Shiesty had space to reflect, to plan, and to create. He focused on writing lyrics, developing future projects, and conceptualizing ways to maintain his brand while incarcerated. His team outside the prison walls continued to release music, ensuring that his presence in the hip-hop world remained tangible. In this way, the period of confinement became a paradoxical source of both limitation and opportunity, a crucible that tested resilience while offering a path for long-term strategic planning. Family remained central to Pooh Shiesty's navigation of this new reality. Calls, letters, and visits reinforced connections that had been strained by the pressures of fame and street life. These relationships became anchors, grounding him as he adapted to the regimented environment of federal incarceration. The dual influence of loyalty and survival that had shaped his early years remained a guiding force, providing both motivation and structure. His family's presence served as a reminder of the life he had fought to build, and the stakes involved in preserving it. While the outside world continued to evolve, Pooh Shiesty's influence didn't wane. Streaming numbers remained strong, fans engaged with every release, and social media buzz ensured that his relevance persisted. This continuity highlighted the effectiveness of his brand management, demonstrating that even physical absence didn't equate to cultural invisibility. The challenge moving forward would be maintaining momentum while adhering to the strictures of federal supervision, a balance that would test both his discipline and creativity. The broader lesson in Pooh Shiesty's journey is that authenticity and strategy are inseparable in his world. His rise wasn't solely the product of musical talent. It was built on a foundation of instinct, street knowledge, and the ability to translate personal experience into a compelling narrative. The violence, feuds, and legal troubles were inseparable from the persona that fans embraced, creating a feedback loop in which real-life events amplified artistic credibility. Each misstep, each confrontation, and each headline became part of the story, reinforcing the mythos of Pooh Shiesty while simultaneously posing existential risks. Ultimately, Part 3 of his story underscores the tension that defines Pooh Shiesty's life, the collision of raw street experience with mainstream opportunity, and the constant negotiation between survival and ambition. The choices he made during this period, whether in music, in the streets, or in courtrooms, were emblematic of a young man navigating a world where every action carried consequences, and every decision could define the trajectory of a life lived on the edge. Pooh Shiesty's rise had been meteoric, but the stakes had never been higher, and the lessons of this period would shape the challenges and opportunities awaiting him in the years to come. The escalation of Pooh Shiesty's life from street prodigy to national rap star was punctuated by moments that could only be described as inevitable consequences of a lifestyle lived on the edge. The Bay Harbor Island shooting had already set the stage for federal attention, but it wasn't the first or only event that demonstrated how deeply the streets were entwined with his newfound fame. Every action, every decision, and every impulse carried weight, and Pooh Shiesty's instincts for survival sometimes collided with the legal and social realities of a world far beyond the Cane Creek projects. The incident at King of Diamonds nightclub in Miami was a stark reminder that notoriety is a double-edged sword. When $40,000 reportedly fell from his waistband during a transaction, what should have been a minor inconvenience erupted into violence. Security personnel attempted to intervene, but Pooh Shiesty's reaction escalated the situation to a shooting incident, injuring a security guard and placing him squarely in the crosshairs of the law. This event illustrated a dangerous pattern. The same decisiveness and aggression that had fueled his survival on the streets now manifested in a system where such behavior could no longer be tolerated. Fame and wealth amplified every action, making minor disputes national headlines and drawing federal scrutiny. The legal ramifications were immediate. The King of Diamonds shooting, combined with the Bay Harbor Islands incident, created a compounded narrative for prosecutors. These weren't isolated mistakes. They were part of a pattern of behavior that painted Pooh Shiesty as a young man unable or unwilling to separate street mentality from the responsibilities of mainstream success. Federal investigators were now looking at his actions through a lens that combined criminal intent, interstate activity, and the use of firearms, elevating the severity of his legal situation. Every video posted online, every social media interaction, and every connection to past associates was scrutinized for potential evidentiary value. Despite the gravity of the charges, Pooh Shiesty continued to release music, demonstrating a unique ability to compartmentalize life and career. His team managed the Shiesty brand with precision, ensuring that fans remained engaged even as legal proceedings loomed. Collaborations with Gucci Mane, Lil Durk, and Jack Harlow kept his name in headlines, showing that strategic brand management could sustain relevance during personal turmoil. Yet, every release also reminded the world of the paradox he inhabited, a man who had achieved the pinnacle of musical success while simultaneously navigating the perilous consequences of street life. One of the most telling aspects of this period was the tension between survival instincts and strategic thinking. In the streets of Memphis, decisions are often immediate, driven by a combination of respect, fear, and opportunity. On a national stage, however, those same instincts could have catastrophic consequences. Pooh Shiesty had to learn, sometimes the hard way, that influence and power in the music industry were governed by different rules than the streets. Fame didn't protect him from law enforcement, nor did wealth immunize him from the consequences of aggression. Each misstep was magnified, each act of retaliation scrutinized, and each lapse in judgment had the potential to undo years of effort. The federal case itself was complex. Investigators meticulously pieced together surveillance footage, eyewitness statements, and social media evidence to establish a timeline of events. The abandoned $30,000 Louis Vuitton bag from the Bay Harbor Islands incident became a central piece of evidence, directly linking Pooh Shiesty to the crime scene. While his defense argued that the robbery was not premeditated, prosecutors framed the event as a deliberate escalation, emphasizing the use of firearms and the interstate nature of the crime. The legal battle highlighted a harsh reality. Actions that might have been survivable in Memphis streets became career-defining in a federal courtroom. The plea deal that ultimately resulted in a 63-month sentence was both a strategic decision and an acknowledgement of the weight of the evidence against him. For a 23-year-old artist at the peak of his popularity, the sentence represented a significant interruption to his career trajectory. It was more than just lost time. It was lost opportunity, lost momentum, and the challenge of maintaining relevance in an industry that moves at breakneck speed. Yet, accepting the plea also allowed him to preserve some control over his future, mitigating the risk of an even longer sentence had the case gone to trial. The human cost of this period was profound. Beyond legal consequences, there was the emotional and psychological toll of navigating high-profile violence, feuds, and scrutiny. The shooting incidents, public feuds, and media attention created a constant pressure that few young artists could endure without faltering. Every decision had implications not just for Pooh Shiesty, but for his family, his associates, and his broader network. The same loyalty that had driven him to act decisively in the streets now required careful consideration to avoid further harm to those around him. Family, as always, played a central role in navigating this period. His father, mob boss, had experienced his own legal battles, providing guidance that combined street wisdom with an understanding of how to operate under legal scrutiny. The family's loyalty was both a source of strength and a complicating factor, as associations that had once offered protection now posed legal risks. Pooh Shiesty's mother and siblings provided emotional grounding, offering perspective and support during a period defined by uncertainty. These relationships reinforced the importance of strategic thinking and the need to balance survival instincts with long-term goals. While the courtroom became a defining arena for Pooh Shiesty, music continued to be his vehicle for narrative control. Projects released during this time allowed him to shape the public perception of events, communicate directly with fans, and maintain cultural relevance. Songs like Paralyzed and Rumors were not only diss tracks, they were narratives that framed his experiences, contextualized his actions, and asserted his dominance in a world where public opinion could influence both career and personal safety. The interplay between real-life events and musical storytelling became a defining feature of his brand, allowing him to navigate a complex web of street credibility and mainstream visibility. The strategic management of reputation during this period also illustrated a broader lesson about modern hip-hop culture. In a world dominated by social media, public perception can be as powerful as any legal argument. Pooh Shiesty understood this implicitly, leveraging his platform to maintain relevance, assert dominance, and shape the narrative around his actions. Each post, track, or video was a calculated move in a high-stakes game, demonstrating a level of strategic thinking that mirrored his instinctual approach to survival on the streets. The intersection of fame, street life, and legal scrutiny reached its apex with the formal announcement of his sentence. Fans, collaborators, and critics alike watched closely, recognizing the implications not only for Pooh Shiesty's career but for the broader Memphis rap scene. The sentence underscored the reality that success, while empowering, comes with heightened accountability. Decisions made in the heat of the moment carry consequences that extend far beyond personal reputation. They shape legal outcomes, family dynamics, and the trajectory of a career built on authenticity and risk. Ultimately, this period in Pooh Shiesty's life represents a critical chapter in understanding the delicate balance between ambition and consequence. Every action, from studio decisions to street confrontations, contributed to a narrative that blended artistry, authenticity, and survival. The federal charges, prison sentence, and ongoing management of his brand highlight the complexity of a life lived at the intersection of raw talent, street credibility, and national fame. For Pooh Shiesty, the stakes were no longer just respect or reputation. They were freedom, opportunity, and the ability to shape a legacy that could transcend both the streets and the courtrooms that now defined him. This phase of his story also illuminates the broader systemic forces at play. Growing up in environments where violence and poverty are normalized can instill instincts that are highly adaptive locally but potentially destructive in a national or legal context. Pooh Shiesty's trajectory highlights the tension between survival-driven behavior and the structures of mainstream success, demonstrating the difficulty of reconciling deeply ingrained habits with new realities. It is a story not just of individual choices but of the environments that shape those choices and the consequences that follow when the two collide. Even as his incarceration loomed, Pooh Shiesty's influence didn't diminish. His brand, carefully managed by his team, remained visible in the music industry, reinforcing the idea that cultural relevance can persist even in the absence of physical presence. This ability to maintain a connection with fans while navigating legal peril reflects a deep understanding of modern media dynamics and the power of narrative control in hip-hop culture. It also sets the stage for his eventual return, a story of resilience, planning, and the ongoing negotiation between identity, ambition, and survival that has defined his life from the very beginning. Prison was a world unlike any Pooh Shiesty had experienced before. The streets of Memphis had taught him survival, loyalty, and fearlessness, but federal incarceration demanded a different kind of discipline and awareness. Every day was regimented, every interaction monitored, and every mistake potentially magnified. For someone who had built a career on instinct, confidence, and street credibility, the shift was jarring. Yet, he approached it with the same strategic mindset that had allowed him to navigate danger in his neighborhood. He knew he couldn't control everything around him, but he could control how he responded and what he did with the time he had. Isolation, surprisingly, became a source of focus. Pooh Shiesty began writing lyrics, plotting future albums, and brainstorming ways to maintain his relevance while locked up. The Shiesty brand had become larger than him as an individual. Fans expected consistency, and his team worked tirelessly to release new music, videos, and merchandise that kept his presence alive in the public eye. Even behind bars, he was actively shaping the narrative, turning a potential career interruption into an opportunity to plan a comeback. Each letter sent, each recorded verse, and each strategic social media post reinforced that his influence extended far beyond the confines of the prison walls. Reflection was inevitable. Pooh Shiesty began to examine the choices that had brought him to federal prison, recognizing the pattern of aggression and impulsive decisions that had characterized much of his life. He thought about the feuds, the shootings, and the risks he had taken, understanding that while these actions had built his reputation, they had also cost him years of freedom. Letters to family and close friends became a form of accountability, a way to process both regret and the lessons learned. He realized that his survival instincts, which had once been necessary, now needed to be adapted for a world that operated under entirely different rules. Family remained central to his experience. Mob Boss, his father, offered guidance from experience, while his mother and siblings provided emotional support and perspective. Conversations with them emphasized the importance of thinking long-term, understanding consequences, and protecting the family legacy. Pooh Shiesty had always been fiercely loyal, and in prison, that loyalty extended to maintaining connections with his team and ensuring that the Shiesty brand continued to thrive. His mother's encouragement reminded him that he was not just building for himself, but for a family whose history had been shaped by cycles of violence and incarceration. Despite the challenges, Pooh Shiesty's reputation within the hip-hop community remained intact. Collaborations that had been recorded before incarceration continued to be released strategically, maintaining his fan base and reinforcing his dominance. Streaming numbers remained strong, and social media engagement stayed high. His story, street credibility, national fame, and legal consequences resonated with fans, adding layers of authenticity and relatability. The narrative of struggle and survival is central to hip-hop culture, and Pooh Shiesty's ongoing visibility allowed him to remain a symbol of resilience even while confined. Prison also hardened him. The federal system is unforgiving, and survival required constant vigilance. Pooh Shiesty had to navigate new hierarchies, manage potential threats, and assert boundaries to protect himself. Fame and wealth meant nothing here. Only adaptability, intelligence, and presence of mind mattered. He learned to read situations quickly, make calculated decisions, and control interactions in a highly structured environment. These lessons, while learned under duress, would be invaluable upon his eventual release. They demonstrated a form of resilience that complemented the street smarts he had developed in Memphis. Looking ahead, Pooh Shiesty's release is projected for 2027. This time frame frames the challenge and opportunity simultaneously. 5 years away from the music industry during a critical period in hip-hop evolution is significant. New artists will have emerged, trends will have shifted, and fan expectations may have evolved. Yet, his team has maintained the Shiesty brand, ensuring that he remains relevant and that his fanbase is ready for his return. The story is no longer just about survival. It's about planning a re-entry that maximizes both cultural and commercial impact while avoiding the mistakes of the past. The stakes are higher than ever. Upon release, Pooh Shiesty will face a world that has changed while he was gone. Supervised release conditions will limit associations and movements, making it critical to build a network of support that is legally safe and strategically advantageous. Reconnecting with the music industry, sustaining fan engagement, and balancing personal freedom with career aspirations will require a level of foresight and discipline not previously demanded of him. His ability to adapt, reflect, and execute will determine whether he returns as a dominant force or struggles to regain momentum. Ultimately, this chapter of Pooh Shiesty's life is a study in consequences and opportunity. The same environment that produced him, with all its danger, loyalty, and raw energy, also provided the lessons that can guide him toward a different path. The decision to either repeat patterns that led to incarceration or use this time to redefine himself will shape his legacy. For the Shiesty family, this is not just Pooh Shiesty's story. It is the continuation of a generational narrative of survival, resilience, and the pursuit of something better than what the streets alone can provide. As he prepares for the next chapter, Pooh Shiesty embodies a unique tension between past and future, street and stage, survival and ambition. How he navigates these forces will define not only his personal destiny but the broader perception of his family's legacy in Memphis and hip-hop culture at large. The question that hangs over this story is clear. Can the young man who mastered survival in the streets now master the art of building a lasting, meaningful, and secure life beyond them? The answer will reveal the true measure of the Shiesty legacy. If you've been following this story from the streets of Memphis to the global stage, you already know that Pooh Shiesty's journey is far from ordinary. From humble beginnings in Cane Creek projects to collaborations with some of hip-hop's biggest names, from chart-topping hits to federal prison, this story has it all: ambition, loyalty, betrayal, tragedy, and triumph. And here's the truth. This isn't just about one rapper or one family. It's about survival, choices, and the consequences that come with living life on the edge. Now, we want to hear from you. What do you think Pooh Shiesty's next move will be when he walks out of federal prison? Will he come back stronger than ever, using his talent and influence to dominate the music industry, or will the same streets that shaped him pull him back into danger? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this story is bigger than just one person. It's a conversation about loyalty, legacy, and how much the environment you grow up in shapes your destiny. If you're a fan of real stories, raw talent, and the unfiltered truth behind hip-hop headlines, make sure you hit that like button. Every like helps us bring you more in-depth content about the artists and events that the mainstream media won't fully cover. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. This channel is your front row seat to everything happening in hip-hop, from street wars and music feuds to the rise and fall of some of the industry's most talked about stars. Also, tap the notification bell so you never miss a drop. We've got more exclusive stories coming up that dive deeper into the lives, struggles, and comebacks of the biggest names in rap, including behind-the-scenes looks, legal battles, and untold stories that you won't see anywhere else. Finally, share this video with your friends, your crew, and anyone who's obsessed with hip-hop culture. Pooh Shiesty's story isn't just entertainment. It's a lesson in ambition, risk, and the fine line between success and downfall. By sharing, you're spreading awareness about the realities of the streets, the music, and the choices that define legacies. The streets of Memphis, the Shiesty family, and Pooh Shiesty's journey are far from over, and you get to witness the next chapter unfold. So comment, like, subscribe, hit that bell, and share the story. The conversation doesn't end here, it's just getting started.